we have the engine flipped back over, and you guys can see how the pistons are just kind of nicely sitting in there, ready to go. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and put all of the bearing inserts. You can also see I've reinstalled the oil squirters. So I'm going to go ahead and put the bearing inserts in both the main bearings and the rod bearings. And then we're going to very, very gently set the crank down. So there you have it, all the bearing inserts are installed, both the mains and the rods. And now it's time to get those lubricated. There's also some conflicting opinion on to what is the proper type of lubrication to put on there. I use a mix of kind of some Moly assembly lube as well as some regular engine oil. So I'm going to get that lubricated up, and then we will set the crank in place. Now it's time to install this rear seal in this housing right here. I'm going to use the press to do that. I've got this thing blocked up on a nice completely flat surface. I've got the new seal with a very light coat of RTV around the outside, and I have the seal installation tool. So this is just going to put even pressure all the way around that seal, protect this installation ring right here, and get it all the way set down to the right depth. So I'm going to push this in as far as I can just with my fingers, and you can see it kind of pops up. We'll get it started like that. Put our installation ring on the top there, and then use just an even plate that we can use to get the seal pressed in. The trick here is to try and make this seal go in as evenly as possible all the way around. And this doesn't take very much force, so this press is really overkill, so you just gotta be careful. And hopefully you guys can see, pressed it in, and that came off, and it's an even depth all the way around on each side. So that is good to go. Seal is ready. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get this seal retainer housing installed on the end of this crank before we set it up in there. As it says in the instructions on the outside of the seal, install this drive. They're very, very specific about making sure that this seal is installed without any oil. So you just kind of line up that plastic retaining ring on there, and then push the seal past it, and there it is. It's ready to go. So now, next step, we are going to hook up some straps to that crank and set it in place. So crankshaft is set back in position. Now I'm just going to reach in here and pull this piston up, just like that. And so we're going to go ahead and get the caps put on 2 and 5. So we're going to get caps for 2 and 5, get those set in place so that we can turn this thing over and go ahead and check some bearing clearances once we get most of it all hooked up. Okay guys, we're going to go ahead and torque these down. The rods, they torque in a sequence of 25, 50, and then 73. And the mains torque at a sequence of 44, 88, and 129. So the sequential torque not as critical as just the ultimate torque. So we're going to do it in just a couple of stages here. So I've got this set at 50. So we're just going to go ahead and get that set to 50 and torque both of them. Then we're going to step it up to 73, and that'll be the end of the torque for our rod bolts. And before you guys flame me, yes, when I do the final torque I won't have this extension, but for the sake of double and triple checking my measurements with the plastic gauge, this will work just fine. So no negative comments about using a torque wrench with an extension, please. Okay, now we go to our final for the mains, which is 129 foot-pounds. Okay, now we'll get a breaker bar, break them loose, and double check our bearing clearances with the plastic gauge. Okay, now for the moment of truth. Hopefully you guys can see that, but we are right between 2 and 3 thousandths on the thickness for the rods. We're a little, looks like we're a little big on the mains. We're between 3 and 4 on the mains, which is well within standard. So I'm going to get this plastic gauge wiped off, and then we're going to go ahead and get everything else torqued. the block flipped back over, now we're ready to go ahead and install the cylinder head. I've got the gasket right here. I'm running a Felpro gasket. Be careful about the gaskets that you purchase. There's a lot of junky ones on the market. You want to use either an OEM gasket directly from Cummins, or a Felpro makes a suitable one. And what you're looking for is all of the sealing, all these marks around here that'll help seal all that water jacket. So also make sure that you've got your cylinder head alignment dowels put back in. I pulled these out so that we could have a nice surface on our block. So you want to make sure your surface here is all completely clean of any oil or anything like that. I always just verify nothing looks funny inside the cylinders, because this is your last chance. Again, make sure everything is all clean. And that your gasket slips down over your alignment dowels. Okay guys, I'm going to lift and set the cylinder head down, and here's a little trick. I'm going to set two sockets, one on number 1 and one on number 6. That way when I carry the cylinder head over here, I can rest the cylinder head down and take my fingers out. Okay, now with it kind of balanced there, I'm going to be able to kind of fine-tune the positioning, get a couple of the long bolts started, and then I'll be able to slowly just drop the cylinder head down. So I just take a couple of the long bolts, and we're going to kind of move the cylinder head until those bolts kind of get started. And again, we're still just kind of perched up on those sockets. And now I can reach in there, remove that one socket, slowly lower the cylinder head down. And there it is. Cylinder head is sitting down onto the gasket. Gasket's still on the pins. Everything looks good. So I can go ahead and take these bolts out and start to plan out getting the rest of our cylinder head bolts installed. We got all of our head bolts in, we've got all of our rockers on, and now we're going to talk about cylinder head bolt torque spec. Now, if you do your internet research, you're going to see two different theories here. First theory is torque to 115 foot-pounds and then call it a day. The factory Cummins manual says to torque the short bolts, which are all these ones on the outside, to 66 foot-pounds and then turn them 90 degrees. Then it says for the long bolts to torque them to 90 and then turn them 90 degrees. So we're going to follow the factory spec, torque the short ones to 66, the long ones to 90 degrees in the sequence. And the sequence is pretty easy to figure out. You basically start in the middle and then you work yourself in a circular pattern all the way around in steps, okay? So we're going to torque them in sequence. So we'll torque them to 40, then we'll torque them to 50, then we'll torque everything to 66, then we'll torque the long ones to 90, and then at that point we're going to go ahead and torque everything to the additional 90 degrees of turn. So I'm going to do that right now. Now that I know everything has been torqued properly, long bolts are torqued to 90, the short bolts are torqued to 66, I'm going to go make a mark on each one of these. Again, you want to follow in the sequence. So there you have it. You can see all of my bolts have been rotated 90 degrees. And their cylinder head has been torqued.